Hello, and welcome to the 23rd video in my Punishing Graven lore series. Today we'll cover the 16th chapter of the main story, Evernight Beat. Previously in chapter 15, Vera rescued Commandant from Corona's clutches, embarking on a secret mission to Atlantis, one of the world government's many zero-point reactors. There they look for any significant information, both to validate Vera's actions and keep Commandant out of Corona's reach. While searching, they uncover the fate of the city's inhabitants and battle the Ascendant Lamia, ultimately coming out with the research data left behind by the scientists. Now with Commandant and Graven back on the same side, they begin a new journey, filled with challenges and hardship, but with a bond of trust and loyalty, Grey Raven can overcome any obstacle. Now without any further delay, let's dive into chapter 16, Evernight Beat. Hassan makes his way to his seat in preparation for the World Government Conference. Within this building, the members of the judicial, executive, and control courts, along with the military, gather in what can only be considered hallowed ground for Babylonia. Unlike the World Government Summit that deals in matters on the scale of humanity, the conference deals with lesser issues, and many members choose to attend virtually or not at all. Hassan's portion of the meeting does not last long, as humanity as a whole cannot afford wasted time in regards to government decisions. Council members filter out of the room, leaving Hassan, Nicola, and Hilda, head of the control court, to discuss the Science Council's analysis of the Omega file. At the same time, Collins rages in his office, throwing around a stack of reports on Corona's newest project. Apparently they have managed to develop a new frame based on data collected from Luna, but this empty shell, as he calls it, is functionally useless to him. Collins wants to evolve humanity using the power of the agents, since if a construct is a step forward in evolution, an agent would be a massive leap. But Collins isn't worried, as he has more than enough data to make any number of attempts, because he has the original source. The reason Collins has been able to be so lax towards his tracking of Luna is because he already has her. This was the revelation that shocked Rebecca following Commandant's escape. They were using him as a method of infiltrating Luna's mind for more information, but Hassan's plan worked perfectly, and the notoriety he gained after Atlantis has provided the best possible security, public attention. In the meantime, Collins gives Rebecca a blank check and complete access to his resources to find out anything she can about the Omega file. Back at the World Government Conference, both Hassan and Nicola are left speechless by what they are reading. The Science Council has successfully managed to recreate the absorption of the virus, and having caught a glimpse of a potential win condition, Hassan orders all the Science Council's needs be prioritized, a move that will no doubt attract unwanted attention. But knowing Corona will make their move is more than enough, and if their cards are played right, they can find out what Corona knows. Hassan contacts Asimov, and he says the Science Council needs more high-level Hedo creature samples to complete their research, and Hilda reveals that during Chrome's fight with the Hive Mother, it was connected to another entity outside the sewer system, likely a more advanced Hive Mother, as the one in the sewers was only referred to as a test subject. Hassan brings up video of the hangars, showing the many soldiers of the task force ready to head for Earth, all in an effort to advance the Omega file. But curiously enough, a singular pink-haired construct manages to get Asimov's attention, and as she looks at the camera, he feels her gaze landing not on the screen in front of her, but on his very being. Back when he was being transported from Atlantis, Commandant received a message from Hassan, where he explains how he managed to break Corona's hold on Grey Raven, and his desire to prop the team up as war heroes, both to keep them away from Corona's influence and to have them serve as pillars of hope for humanity. For the time being, they are being kept far away from the front lines and spend their days touring the various conservation areas to boost morale. Commandant remembers his time walking through one of the camps, when he came across Liv and the woman from the desert settlement. The woman begins tearing up and apologizing for her harsh treatment, and thanks us for saving her grandson. After a while, the woman is exhausted, and just like her grandchild, falls asleep. Day by day, the number of conservation areas grows, and the Air U is steadily being rebuilt. Even the Forsaken are reclaiming old cities, with the goal of reclaiming the surface from the virus becoming more and more of a possibility. As he reminisces, he gets a call from Chrome, who explains that the task force is searching for more advanced forms of the Hive Mother, and he wants Grey Raven to take Strikehawk's position in the newest operation. Chrome and his team need to stay in Babylonia to aid the Science Council in their research, But since Chrome's specialized frame managed to defeat a hive mother, it's not a large leap to assume that Lucia's could as well. To escape any possible monitoring, the two meet up in Asimov's office to discuss the situation in more depth. Researcher number 47 explains that using higher quality samples like the polyphage, or in this case hive mother, will exponentially speed up their progress. Since the sewer battle, a number of hive mothers have been found, but pale in comparison to the one Chrome fought. Even then, if their current search goes well, they will find the hive mother being nurtured directly by Vonnegut. They narrowed down the possible travel range he could have went between his two encounters in the sewers, and the trail they picked up on the surface. They managed to narrow it down to a handful of possible locations when Commandant speaks up and points out different anomalies he encountered while on Earth, and with this new information, they finally get their answer. Salika briefs Hassan on the state of the surface, and 43% of cities lost during the outbreak have been reclaimed, with almost half of those being liberated by the Forsaken. He's not known as being a superstitious man, but with this new wave of victories and the addition of the Omega File, he can feel a turning point in the war is imminent. Nicola arrives on the bridge and they discuss the possibility of allowing Greyraven back into the front lines, and after a passionate speech from Commandant, Hassan's worries are pacified, with Greyraven finally receiving permission to rejoin the fight. Soon after, Hilda joins the two, after having confirmed the location of the hive mother hiding in the Pulia Forest Park ruins. She shows them a video of the park, and they are shocked to see the entire forest covered in hetero creatures, mimicking the natural flora. And in the center of the park, a massive tree that once served as the central purification filter of the city. She pulls up a second video of Team Woodcock's reconnaissance, where the team was following signs of human activity within the forest, and following the trail to what is assumed to be scavengers. Only when the team approached the figures were they revealed to be a type of humanoid monster wrapped in bone, each with a large red core in their chests. Currently, the Science Council has decided to call these abominations Heterosapiens, and these creatures bring with them the revelation that the virus has reached the stage of Homo sapiens, that is to say humans, and if it continues to evolve, it will become an existence that surpasses humanity. Time is of the essence, and they need to decide what to do next. In addition to having to fight the hive mother itself, there are now the new Heterosapiens to deal with, meaning a ground assault could be very costly in terms of casualties. This being why the Control Court suggests using the Longinus Arsenal. Both Hassan and Nicola agree that the potential benefits of the hive mother sample are worth the risk and mobilize the task force. They appoint Hans as the commander for the mission, making use of his experience and battlefield knowledge. But as of late, Hans's health has been declining, and Hassan makes it clear that a mission of this scale could cost his life. But for Hans, that price couldn't be any cheaper. In addition to Greyraven, he selects Woodcock as they were the first on the scene and have the most knowledge about the park, Egret for their superior firepower to deal with the newly discovered enemy type, and Simon, whose mind beacon strength is second only to Commandant himself, and will help stabilize the constructs when in close proximity to the hive mother. And with all the necessary forces mobilized, the operation can officially begin. The transport lands and Hans begins the mission briefing. Their objectives are to find the hive mother located in the central filter and clear a path for Greyraven to defeat it with Lucia's specialized frame. If at any point the mission becomes impossible to complete, Hans will once again deploy the bit domain nodes and call down Longinus to annihilate the forest. Secondly, they are to save as many scavengers as possible. In the worst case scenario of all these plans failing, and the nodes being unable to be deployed, Babylonia will commence a wide-scale bombardment and glass the forest, killing everything within, whether friend or foe. Everyone takes time to check their gear and draw up plans, when Commandant suddenly feels bloodlust aimed at him. He disarms his attacker and pins them to the ground. As the blonde man in front of him chokes on mud, a construct named Yata from Team Scarab makes her second-story appearance and introduces the two. The man is Commandant of Team Woodcock, Harley Joe, and was in the same graduating year as Commandant and Simon. He wanted to lighten the mood with a practice spar, and has been doing similar things with other teams to help ease their nerves. Hans makes his last call before they move deeper into the forest, as the two commandants are joined by Simon and Vanessa. With all preparations complete, they enter into the forest, soon running into the Heterosapiens, and after clearing them out, Hans gives the assault force a chance to rest. The signal jamming lets up just enough for a message to get through, a video, one that shows hetero creatures self-destructing, melting back into red tide, only to have that tide reshape itself into a heterosapien. Hassan appears and says the global concentration of virus is rising exponentially, threatening to undo all the progress they've made so far. Liv and the other support-type constructs come back with an analysis of the heterosapiens, and at first they thought they were incapable of sensing outside stimulus due to their relentless nature, but it turned out to be the opposite. They have overactive sensory organs, but those signals are not processed by their brains. Instead, they are sent up the umbilical cords connecting them to the forest and ultimately the hive mother. If these cords are severed, the heterosapiens will be forced to handle the burden of their own senses, and that impact on their frail bodies will render them paralyzed at the very least. Information this important must be shared with the rest of Babylonia's ground forces, and thankfully, Harley and Yatta finish calibrating a set of signal amplifiers that will allow for stable communication even with the interference. Now having every base covered, Hans issues his next orders, and everyone continues on to the central filter. As the assault force reaches the filter, the heterosapiens' attack becomes even fiercer. Hans has Vanessa and her team hold the line and keep away any unwanted intruders, as Harley and Yatta are sent to scale the side of the filter and open a secondary exit route in case their primary is cut off. Everyone else follows Hans into the filter, securing level after level on their way to the central chamber. On the way they find burn marks and shotgun casings, along with heterosapien corpses, with Hans taking note of the scene as he deploys his third domain node. In the central chamber of the filter, Grey Raven finds the hive mother. It is far larger and more complete than the one in the sewers, with its nerves spreading throughout the filter and into the forest gathering data. Commandant fires a single shot, leaving no damage but getting the monster's attention. Lucia attacks, and the hive mother evades with unreal swiftness for its massive body. But Liv was waiting, stopping it in its tracks with a barrage of laser fire. Commandant continues shooting, and even with the bullets doing no damage, he keeps his attention off of Lee, who has been sneaking around repairing the filter, until finally it's ready. The virus concentration begins to drop, and the hive mother panics. Commandant fires again, this time at the umbilical cord attaching it to the walls, and it falls to the ground. It curls into itself under the constant stream of attacks. Its defeat is all but guaranteed, but it takes special care not to allow its underbelly to take damage. Ever since Commandant entered the forest, random details haven't been sitting right with him. The hive mother gathering data from the outside world, taking in more viral nutrients than it needs to live, and his protective posture. Suddenly it clicks that the hive mother isn't the only enemy here, but it's too late. It pulls itself into the air with all its remaining strength, and a bulging red womb is revealed. From within, two humanoid figures emerge and land on the ground. If the heterosapiens outside are prototypes, then these are the finished products. The room goes silent, and Commandant's blood freezes. Whatever these things are, they are dangerous. Against the unidentified twins, the strongest squad stands no chance. With their arrival, the construct's inver devices are being hit twice as hard, coupled with the fact the twins are just overwhelmingly powerful. Liv finds out the invisible pellets they are firing is their imitation of Commandant's bullets, only several times more powerful. He manages to save both Lucia and Lee from their attack, taking out his pistol to retaliate when the hive mother intercepts the shots and pierces his stomach with one of her tentacles. He switches out his normal magazine for Parliament's experimental ammo and shoots off the tentacle. Sensing her pain, the twins run to their mother's side, and the floor collapses as Commandant blacks out. He comes to find they have been saved by Simon and Hans, who collapse the lower floors to save the team. Lucia gives her report that while they failed to defeat the hive mother, they managed to receive a sample, that being the tentacle still inside Commandant's wound. With their primary exit now unavailable, they all evacuate to the secondary exit made by Harley and Yatta. They rush to the extraction point and Hans pulls the trigger to the Longinus arsenal, only the signal isn't sent. He immediately realizes this means the nodes have either been destroyed or need to be recalibrated manually, and after learning it's the latter, he issues his orders. Harley is in charge of sending the sample back to Babylonia, as Simon takes on the burden of keeping the construct stable. As for Hans himself, he will go back and reset the nodes. Unable to be swayed, he heads back to the center of the filter, surprisingly unobstructed as most of the heterosapiens have been lured to more intense areas of fighting. But now he faces the first and most primal form of the virus, infection. Underneath his protective suit, his blood vessels begin to burst as his organs begin failing, but still his lips curl into a smile. His health has been deteriorating for some time now, and no number of enhancement surgeries can stave off age forever. He is happy his final moments as a soldier will not be spent in Babylonia, medicated on a hospital bed. He will die here, alone on the front lines, without a fancy coffin or ceremonious funeral, shedding his last drops of blood to complete his mission. And for him, there's no greater honor, no better death. Since the Great Evacuation, he has carried on his duty as a soldier, vowing to protect humanity from any number of threats, and within the next generation, he can feel that same spark. A soldier may fall, but the passage of that duty continues on to those who follow. He crawls to the node, his body already rotting from the infection, and finishes the recalibration. With the last of his strength, he presses the trigger, listening to the sweet sounds of the now activated nodes as his duty finally comes to an end. The other commandants retreat back to the forest, which is currently on fire thanks to Vanessa and her bombing runs. They race to the edge of safety, swarms of heterosapiens fresh on their heels. 10 meters, 5 meters, 1 meter. They cross the threshold and Harley sets up the rocket, firing the sample to Babylonia. Shortly after, they get a transmission that scavengers from the park were recovered, and an evac is en route to their position. Everyone takes a moment to rest, as Commandant and Simon are in poor but stable condition. This brief respite lasts mere moments, as in the distance 2 figures approach the camp, as the green grass turns into a red barren wasteland under their feet. With 2 commandants out of commission, Harley and Vanessa form every remaining construct into a defensive line, challenging the strongest beings on the planet, and the army of heterosapiens following close behind. The twins stare at the invaders, the ones who destroyed their home, attacked their mother, and are ready to bring about a new war against humanity. What follows is a massacre. Outnumbered and outmatched, the construct defensive line is dismantled. Even Grey Raven is put down, with Liv being the only member left standing, but that too ends shortly. The twins prepare to land the death blow when a ray of light pierces the sky. Sensing what comes next, the twins and remaining heterosapiens rush towards the filter as it's engulfed by the light. As the light fades, the hive mother is no more, reduced to atoms, along with many of the heterosapiens. From within the crater left behind, red liquid seeps out from the cracks, forming back into the twins. They stare at the crater, looking for a mother that no longer exists, but one day all children grow up and leave home. The twins are no exception. The park may have served as the beginning of their journey, but it's just that, a beginning, and so they turn and leave, abandoning their spoils of war to experience Earth, to learn and to grow. Several hours after the twins had left, the transport Babylonia sent finally arrived, an empty husk burning as it crashed to the ground. They managed to save the pilot and begin their retreat on foot. Everywhere they go, they find the same thing: destroyed purifiers, burning farms, and destroyed conservation areas. As the front line is pushed back, more and more people join the retreat, sacrificing their newfound comfort for survival. Liv digs survivors out of the rubble, trying her hardest to offer some manner of aid, but a drop of water can do little to stop a raging inferno. Hans, Simon, Lucia, and Commandant all fulfilled their purposes as soldiers, but to what ends? Once again, humanity finds itself united, not in hope, but in utter desperation. After striking their deal, Vonnegut bestows a new power upon Roland, but just a small taste, as he limits the amount of power he takes in, so as to not compromise his already weak connection to Luna. Getting down to business, Vonnegut admits he didn't expect Babylonia to find the test hive mother in the sewers, but in its stead he discovered a more suitable subject. Roland says his plan sounds a lot like Gabriel, and they all know how that turned out. But one crucial difference is Gabriel wanted to serve himself, whereas Vonnegut wants to serve the network. The current hetero creatures are powerful, but lack intelligence of their own. The appearance of the hive mothers was a sign from the virus of what it truly wants, and represent the first steps to his ideal future. Long ago, Roland observed Gabriel as he experimented with his hetero creatures. From the beginning, Gabriel only ever saw them as puppets to be controlled and used by the Ascendants. He was fixated on the next form of the creature's evolution, only caring how their increased power would serve him. Now Roland gets to witness the answer Gabriel fought so hard for. Roland looks up to see a massive hive mother, as she converts the purification filter into a hotbed for absorbing nutrients, and Vonnegut explains that Gabriel was on the right path, but ignored one crucial detail that made all the difference: the presence of emotion. Strong feelings of pain, longing, and anger are what led the Ascendants to pass the preliminary stages of the filtering. Without these, the hetero creatures couldn't advance past the most basic requirement of the filtering. Vonnegut gives Roland 2 tasks in preparation for the birth: to protect Mother and make sure she gives birth without incident, and to provide external stimulation, in the form of luring in scavengers. Picking up with a mysterious traveler who approaches a camp, he is threatened by 3 scavengers, Beardy, Quartus, and Zack, who search his supplies and find a military-grade serum. They question where their new friend got such a rare item, and consequently find out about the CPF. After a brief discussion with the other scavengers, Zack decides the filter is their best chance of getting more supplies, even after being warned of the corrupted within the park. The traveler, who calls himself Romo, is forced to take point, leading the group to their eventual destruction. They arrive at the park, finding the existence of such a quiet, peaceful area uncanny. Beauty trips and cuts his leg on a welcome sign, prompting Zack to have the group stop so they can rest up and treat their wounds. They clear out a patch of forest and set up a base camp, and Zack takes stock of their weapons as Quartus treats Beardy's leg wound. Even Roland joins the group by the fire. Over their short journey, the group begins to grow accustomed to him. Beardy even gives him a share of their food, unaware of his true status as an Ascendant. Having some peace and quiet, Zack begins to reminisce about a movie he had once seen about a proud knight on a fruitless journey. As their conversation winds down, they remember their need to reach the filter, dismantling the camp and continuing on with their journey. As they head deeper into the forest, they see slight changes in their surroundings. The plants become red and produce a sap-like substance, along with the cracking of stakes and branches in the distance. Quartus follows the noise and enters a clearing, finding an indescribable scene. The plants here are bright red, with deformed humanoid creatures crawling on the ground. Beauty catches up and screams, alerting the creatures, who turn to the group and begin imitating their behavior. They stand on 2 legs, grow a poor substitute for human teeth, and even copy their voices. They fire at the creatures, and their bodies explode into a red mist of virus that causes their skin to fester. Roland tells them to head for the CPF, and they do so in such a panic they don't even notice he has stopped leading them. He stays behind and kills the surrounding heterosapiens before they can intervene in the experiment, and rushes back to the group before they become too suspicious. He meets the group at the base of the tower, and they enter the stage as the real performance finally begins. They make their way to the bottom of the filter and finally find the supply crates, and seeing the numerous signs of combat, assume they were not the first group to arrive here. They spread out to find more supplies, and Zack stops in his tracks, listening. He hears a faint rhythmic sound from the vents, along with a slight breeze, and thinks the CPF might still be operational. Before they can discuss Zack's findings, red warnings begin flashing all around them, as the surrounding vents are broken down by a sudden influx of hetero creatures and plant-like vines. Unable to fight them all off, Roland calls for them to head to higher ground for safety. They manage to barricade themselves in a separate compartment of the filter, but the plants do not let up, trying to pry the door open with sheer volume. In the panic, Roland is grabbed by the vines and with his last words tells the others to head upstairs. Having completed his mission, Romo becomes Roland once again and meets with Cinderella in the center of the filter. Thanks to Roland bringing humans into the forest, the Hive Mother has accumulated a wealth of varied human experiences, greatly increasing its incubation rate. After she finishes speaking, Roland offers a deal. Cinderella gives him information on the hive mother, and he will provide details on hetero-creature experiments that aren't in Gabriel's recordings. She agrees and displays Gabriel's final recordings, where he finally realizes that the emotions he deemed as errors were the key to everything. Inside the filter, the scavengers continue to search for a way back outside, with Zack mentioning the central control room is the only way to forcefully unseal the entrance. They enter a corridor full of hetero creatures, and using the traits they are mimicking from Earth-based organisms, Cortus realizes they can sneak past if they create a big enough distraction. He throws their explosives at a nearby pipeline, and the chain explosion covers their tracks just long enough for them to cross. They make it to the control room, and Zack begins working on the console to open an exit, but to his surprise, the last login was back during the post-pandemic age. This shouldn't be the case, as the filter maintenance cannot be performed without the control terminal, and that begs the question, how is the CPF still active? The CPF works by separating gases with different densities, so maintenance must be performed to clean out the filter elements that hold the separated virus, yet the air is clean with a shockingly low viral density. He pulls up security footage on the terminal as it displays the hive mother, and realizes that the virus that should go to the filter is being taken by this creature. Understanding the danger, they try to call for help, unaware that their every move is being watched. Roland looks at the monitor as their desperate situation brings back unpleasant memories of his past. Finally fed up, he leaves for a while for a new change of scenery, glancing at a map of the hidden fire exits before leaving the room. As the initial panic wears off, the three scavengers have finally hit their limit, and with all options exhausted, they wallow in despair. Suddenly, with a new burst of energy, Zack stands up. The CPFs were machines meant to protect people, and it being taken and polluted by this monster is something he won't stand for. His fingers begin flying across the screen, pulling up file after file as he attempts to cut the power from the facility. Cinderella watches the hive mother as it displays what she can only interpret as fear. The progress bar to the hive mother's completion stalls, and then begins regressing. Cinderella's pupils shrink, and the hive mother starts to scream out as the umbilical cords around it die off. The hive mother begins to climb, and Cinderella helps it rip open the ceiling to the basement as it begins climbing the inside of the tower. The attacking hetero creatures become even more agitated, with Beardy and Cortus blocking the door but failing to notice the vines coming from the vents, and Zack is stabbed in the chest as a result. They rush to give him a serum, but he refuses, knowing it's too late for him. Suddenly the door bursts open, and Cinderella prepares to execute the three for the sin of hurting Mother, when the wall beside her explodes, and Roland steps out, asking for a moment of privacy. He offers Cortus and Beardy a chance to escape, but only if they leave Zack behind. Initially they refuse, even against Zack's wishes, but with Roland pressed for time as the virus concentration begins rising, he ties the two up, throwing them into the stairwell, along with a keycard and directions to the exit. As the path is sealed, Cinderella asks why Roland allowed the scavengers to leave, and he claims it's all for the benefit of the experiment. Thanks to them, Mother had the emotional reaction of fear for the first time, and as they are still inside the forest, more information can be taken as they make their escape. The two contact Vonnegut and explain the situation, along with the delay in Mother's incubation. He shows no sign of anger or disappointment, only praising the two for completing their missions, and ordering them to collect the data and leave, as he knows Babylonia has found the hive mother's location. While all of this happens, Zack lays on the ground, his body too decayed to even stand. As his vision fades, he manages to make out Roland's voice. Had he been a construct, there's a chance he could have been saved, but after finding out his comrades made it out alive, he hands Roland the serum in his bag, asking him to deliver it to them. Despite knowing Roland deceived the group, he is trusting in the fact that since he saved them once, he will do so again. To Roland, this comes as a surprise, since as an actor he starred in countless tragic plays, and as an ascendant, witnessed countless tragic realities. Yet this human reaches out not for himself, but for his allies. As his life fades away, Roland tells him the ending to that movie. Originally, the knight died when he reached the top of the tower, but the leading actor didn't like that, so he convinced the director to change it. Instead, the gods sleeping within the tower noticed the knight's struggle and rewarded humanity, giving them the hope that they would see the end of the disaster and find a peaceful future. Hearing this, Zack's lips curl into a smile as his body rots away. Even though the impact of a single human is small, those small actions are certainly not meaningless. Roland takes the vial and promises to make sure it reaches them, draping a cloak over the now lifeless man. Cordis and Beardy race through the forest, looking back to see the CPF shrouded by vines and taking the shape of a giant tree. Without anything to help guide them out, they are quickly surrounded by Heterosapiens and take out their last grenade to make a final stand. Roland appears, handing over the serum and freeing them from the encirclement. He points to the sky, at the Babylonia transports heading towards the forest, and as if sensing their arrival, the forest cries out in anger. After the fall of Longinus, a lone wanderer crosses the burned wasteland, a voice in his mind posing a single question: what kind of world do you want to see?
「これって本当に悲惨な現実だね。絶望に打ち砕かれて再構築された世界。これが君の見たいものかい？君ならきっとこういうはずさ。それじゃ幕を上げて願い事を叶えに行こう。
Alright, and congratulations, you have just finished Chapter 16. Honestly not sure why it took this long, especially since the video is on the shorter side. It's insane how 30 minutes has suddenly become the shorter side. Can we go back to 10-minute videos, please? Okay, anyway, okay, so we got a huge twist in that Corono actually captured Luna, so very excited to see where that goes. Also, the Omega file is actually producing results now, so humanity has a weapon they can use against the virus itself, since all this time before we've been fighting against the Ascendants and machines that just happen to be infected by the virus, not, the actual virus itself. As for the characters, we lost Hans, RIP, he was the GOAT, and we have Roland out here just doing Roland things. And if you forgot, since it's been a while, Yata, the tummy out wolf cut girl, was the one chasing Murray inside Gestalt along with Valeria, who's her actual commandant. Yeah, okay. And now for the big stuff. Alright, so humanity was doing good, we're claiming a bunch of cities, and then they arrived at the forest just a little bit too late, and the twins ended up getting born. And then immediately everything hit the fan. Right? Commandant, Simon, Greyraven, minus Liv, and all of the nameless constructs spanked. All of them. These things are, for the moment, unstoppable right now. So I skipped the last node, the very last node of the chapter, but basically it's just Hassen calling another meeting, saying stuff like Babylonia is cut off from the surface, no one can get in or out, and we need to figure out a new strategy because the old one isn't working anymore. And I just thought it sounded better to cut it where I did, so I did. Plus, you'll learn just how bad stuff is. You'll learn how bad it really is in Chapter 17, which is looking like it will be a Part 1 and Part 2 video. Oh, and this isn't, important, but to date, this is the last hidden story. Now it seems like they just put all of the information into the main chapter. Yeah, that's it. Man, these ending parts build up quick. Alright, anyway. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next video where we start Chapter 17 of the main story, The Surviving Lusum.